Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome to the Counter Clipping Show for September 27th, 2021. Let me just get out all of the various things we have going on here. And we will be ready to get started. While we're doing that, you may as well check out the channel of the week, which is linked in the video description. Who did I make the channel of the week this week? I don't even remember. And I have no way to look at that now. Well, don't I feel stupid? Oh well. Do check it out. It's whoever it is, they're really good. So we do have voice this time. We don't have a number of things. One of which is my unfamiliarity with the way OBS moves from scene to scene. Have screwed up audio over the last couple of weeks. So, and then at some point, this microphone, which is just off camera, you can't actually see it, became disconnected in Dave's Gaming Cave. That's right. Dave is doing very nice work. Thank you very much. The Yeti microphone became disconnected from all of the software. So all of the software that I use for various things had to get reconnected to it manually one at a time. And of course, we discovered that one piece of software at a time. So this is I don't have the lid handy. We're clipping Croix de Guerre. Croix de Guerre. This is the French module for ASL. This is the newer one that was released, I think, in 2019. Early 2019 came. I picked it up at Winter Offensive. That would have been 2019, right? Or was it 2020? I think it was 2020. No, it was 2019. So 2019 was the year that it was bad. So anyway, we do have that going. So I am super backed up on ASL counter clipping. How backed up, you ask? This is the remaining ASL counters that need to be clipped. So it is a full 3-inch box of stuff. And at some point before too much longer, we are going to see the new version of Hollow Legions with another 5 or 6 counter sheets or something like that. So I at least got to make a little bit of space in this box, the way I see it. We can also talk about the organizational scheme which we're using for ASL. I use these container store trays. If you want a link to this, let me know, and I can put it in the video description. They come from the Container Store. They are called large compartment boxes. If you Google Container Store large compartment box, that is what will come up. Anyway, have a super high opinion of this particular version of Croix de Guerre. Less so this exact counter sheet, because the die cutting on this is just a wee bit hairy. This is just ASL, mind you. So there are, I think, 2 GBOH games on the shelf, or 3 GBOH games on the shelf behind me that still need to get clipped. It was a very nice day here in Central Ohio, which is good because the power went out for several hours. It didn't come back on until almost 6. That kind of sucked. So let's say hi to E4 Airman Arnman, Charles Latora, Todd Walser, H. Tuna, Krusty Captain, Matt Taylor, Mike, Anthony, Chris K, Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials, excellent channel, Kevin Bertram. I'm very happy to hear that you're going to be at Origins. We'll have to meet up at some point. Harry Z, Manders, A. DiFilippo, Chris Thang, Dale Brady, Tom Borman, Nathan Landrum, Joe Faust, Greg Grant, John Longshore, Stephen Roberts, Jeff Anderson, Rick Cox, The Command Tent, Carl, Wargames, Bootcamp Creeder, Bill Simone, I already got Mike Anthony, Henry Sikorsky, Ken Kloby, John Clark, William Bird, Kyle Reese, Jason W. Stigler is in the house. We are not allowed to talk about decision games tonight, okay? No decision games talk tonight, nor will we be talking about the Charles S. Roberts Awards. So let me issue a brief statement on what's going on with that. I have angered the people running the Charles S. Roberts Awards. They do not like me. We are having a discussion, which has been conducted through email, about certain things that I feel are not being done the way they should be done. And no statements from the Charles S. Roberts Awards group have been issued. although I think they have corrected a couple of the issues. I am going to not say any more right now, not because we're going to find out when the awards are announced exactly what the problems are, and then we'll have that discussion, or we'll have a show about it and have somebody on from the awards team. So we'll see how that works out. Those offers have been extended, and hopefully we can make something happen that will provide everybody with more information and will provide clarity to the community about what is going on over there. So anyway, this is, that's probably 3 months. If I just clipped ASL, I could probably clip ASL for 3 or 4 months. I get about a sheet done reliably. I get about a sheet done in any given counter clipping show. So it depends on how big the counters are, right? If they're bigger counters and less on the sheets, then I tend to get a little bit more done. And I have certainly been super productive sometimes, but I am doing more talking than clipping in general. So there's that. So the topic of tonight, we talked about gaming conventions before. And tonight we're going to talk about Origins specifically. And the reason why is it's this weekend. So Origins is typically in June or July, and it has been in Columbus, Ohio for the last quite a long time, since 1996. And I remember the date because Origins 95 was my first Origins, and it was the last Origins that was not in Columbus. I have missed 2 since then. One was the one last year, which got canceled, and the other was a one that I had a physical ailment at one summer and was not physically able to manage it. At least the way I do Origins, it's a ton of walking. My feet are typically pretty wrecked after a day of that. We'll see if we can control that a little better this year. So what you will often see is me wearing Crocs by like day 2, which are ugly and stupid looking and undignified, but they're easy on your feet as long as you're walking on like paved or carpeted floors. If you're walking outside, less so. So I will be there, and we'll take a look at the map and stuff later on. The website is originsgamefair.com, by the way, so if anybody wants to work ahead and take a look at that, go right ahead. We'll take a look at the map and some of the notable things that are going on there this year. I don't know what the prices of the badges are because I got a GM's badge. So, because I am running Commands and Colors, Napoleonics, with the Armchair Dragoons. There was an Armchair Dragoons area in the big exhibit hall. I don't like the terminology here, but that's the terminology they have given us. So that's what we have. We are drinking, by the way, Kalila. I'm probably still not going to finish it because I've been taking it easy lately. It is nevertheless delicious. So there may be... So you'll recall that last year they tried to do a virtual Origins convention and a physical Origins convention late in the year, and neither one actually occurred. There is a story about people walked out of Origins based on some Black Lives Matter stuff. I think the situation was, in fact, more complicated than that. And it was a smaller number of key individuals in key roles walked out like a week or 2 before the show. And they just couldn't, the virtual show, and they just couldn't swing it. I don't know the details. I would caution against believing everything you hear about it until we see, more information, and that's not likely to happen at this point. And then they canceled the physical show last year too. Everything else got canceled as well. So I'll be there. It starts on Thursday. Typically Origins has been starting on Wednesday in recent years. Matt Taylor, Origins no longer has an auction. The last Origins auction was, I think, in 2015, and that was a silent auction. That is There's a couple of reasons. One of which is definitely the ridiculous auctioneer laws in Ohio. The other is, I think, the story. I can't confirm this, but the story is that somebody broke into the auction room and stole all the cash one year, which definitely disincentivized people from running the auction. The auction was never managed by Gamma, right? They always hired somebody to come in and run it for them for presumably a percentage of the auction take, and that whoever took a bath on it that year, nobody's ever been back. But there's also the auctioneer laws, where so the deal is that in order to conduct an auction with like an auctioneer where you stand up on a stage and sell stuff, you have to be a licensed auctioneer, or you have to hire one that costs several $1,000s. You cannot just go get an auctioneer's license in Ohio. You have to serve an apprenticeship, like a 5-year apprenticeship to do that. It is also costly. So, that wasn't something. One of the reasons I used to go to Origins for the auction, right? This is before I lived in Columbus, and I would drive down from Cleveland, and I would spend pretty much 2 solid days in the auction. And part of the joy of that was seeing, the people who would be the auctioneers were like industry people that and that could tell stories about these things that would come up. The one year they hired a professional auctioneer. Dude, here's a squad leader. Yeah, $2. There we go. $2 sold for $2. It was a disaster. So, no thanks. It did not go well. So, Patrick's Tactics and Tutorial says if I was clipping Combat Commander, I'd be done by now. I mean, I have a lot of thousands of ASL counters clipped, right? So, yeah, that's completely true. On the other hand, if I was playing Combat Commander, the counters would all be worn out because there's only 2. So there's that. John Longshore says you only need about 20 counters a scenario. I assume you're talking about ASL. That's definitely true of a lot of ASL scenarios. Plus markers, right? I mean, you're not using thousands, generally speaking. You're not using thousands of counters per scenario. Unless you're playing the Red Factory's big double campaign. Then it's a lot. You can just show up and get a day pass for Origins. I believe it is about $30. So, this year... It was always like, Wednesday was always like the unofficial start to the convention. People would hang around in game. There was never official events, but like all the dealers would get there on Wednesday so they could start setting up, So eventually Wednesday became an official convention day and events started happening on Wednesday. Well, that's not the case this year. So Thursday is pretty much the Wednesday, which means that if you come Thursday, and I'll be there on Thursday in the evening, there'll be no dealer's room. There'll be gaming, and I would definitely. Somebody asked about Autumn for Barbarossa, by the way. No, I haven't played Autumn for Barbarossa, but what it is basically is Smolensk, Barbarossa derailed, but in SCS instead. I see no reason why that can't work. I think the SCS system is rock solid. It is a very good price, especially right now. So if you find it tempting at all, I would grab it. If you have a concern that it is, July of 41 and it's Operation Barbarossa and the whole thing is going to be the Soviets getting kicked in the teeth, I haven't played it, but I have played OCS Smolensk, and that is not the dynamic of OCS Smolensk. The Soviets definitely have opportunities and the need to counterattack in that situation, and I think the SCS campaign dynamic will work the same way. It should also... You can... Online events... I don't think that I'm... because I'm talking about this, I'm somehow an expert. So let's hop over briefly to let's talk. I guess let's first talk about the history of Origins. Origins started in 1975, and it was put on by a local Baltimore area gaming club that somehow talked Avalon Hill into running this convention. And it was held at Johns Hopkins University, and I have no information as to how many people it drew that first year. But for the first couple of years, management of the show, or organization of the show, and I mean, bear in mind, I suspect that the size of the show at that time was like a few hundred people. Went back and forth between Avalon Hill and SPI. And then in 1978, and I don't know if this was before Origin 78 or after Origin 78, the management of the show was handed to Gamma. So Gamma has actually been running Origin since 1978, over 40 years. So that's a long time. That is, my math is right? Yes, it is. That's a long time, and you'd think they'd be better at it by now. I mean, I'm sort of joking, but there are screw-ups every year, and certainly last year was not among Gamma's more notable moments. Let's put it that way. I have heard good things about event registration, online event registration this year. If the kiosk works this year the way it was supposed to 2 years ago, which was that you would walk up to a kiosk, scan your code on your phone, and it would print out your stuff, and you walk away, that would be fantastic. Last time, that's how it was written up in the book, but what you actually had to do was wait in a giant-ass line and go to a counter where there was a person, a volunteer, who would scan your code for you and print out your badges and hand them to you. It saved no time, as far as I can tell. There was another year, I don't remember what year this was, but there was, of course, I was like in the middle of doing Windows 10 migrations at the time, so I found this totally hilarious. They had just put a new computer system in place, and they turned, day one of the convention, they turn all the computers on, Windows update time. And they were knocked down for a good hour and a half. So I thought that was totally hilarious. That is not a thing that I'm saying is Gamma incompetence, okay? That could happen to anybody. That was just bad timing. So we're going to talk. So one of the things, Alan Salazar, welcome back to the stream, first of all, Alan. Let me talk about the Origins evolution since I have been going, okay? My first Origins, I always say my first Origins was Origins 95, but that's actually not true. There was an Origins and Gen Con in 1992 that I went to, where Origins and Gen Con were, and this is when Origins was still moving around every year. They were held together concurrently in Milwaukee. So technically, 1992 was my first Origins. And then in 93 it went to Fort Worth, 94 it went to San Jose, 95 it went to Philly. And if there's anyone watching from Philly, I am sorry, but in 1995 your city was a shithole. I hope it's better now, as many urban areas have become. I'm not saying Cleveland was not a shithole in 1995. So Jeff is asking about the Excel files. Yeah, that's the online catalog. That has been the case for many years, where the event listing is handled via either Excel or CSV files or both. I think that is an astonishingly tone-deaf decision to keep doing that. That said, I am extremely at home in Excel, and it can, with very little trouble, set up filters and things like that, so I'm only getting to see the things that I actually want to see. So it's not a big problem for me. I still have the die, the commemorative die from that Gen Con plus Origins, by the way. Doug Sunset says that Gamma is fundamentally an amateur organization with the leadership determined by a vote of its members. This has its problems. Yeah, I mean, there's supposed to be a trade organization, a trade advocacy organization, and that's kind of the problem. Is that, well, there's a whole pile of problems with Gamma. In terms, it is a trade organization and not a convention management organization. And when they have hired a convention management company to run Origins, it has run very well. For some reason, Gamma seems to want to not do that, and they want to keep running it themselves, and they run into problems routinely, and people say stuff. So there's that. The other thing is that a lot of the members of Gamma are really, really, really small companies, and it's got this sort of folksy old boy type of atmosphere going on that I think maybe is not serving its trade organization responsibilities particularly well either. I am willing to be convinced that Gamma has in fact done a great deal of good for the gaming industry. I am not capable of identifying a single one of those things. The Philly convention in '95 was in downtown Philadelphia, not Chester, PA. In the late '70s, there were conventions in Chester, PA, though. But that was before my time. I mean, Origins is older than my participation in the hobby. So one of the things that I start going to Gen Cons in the early '90s, and there's still a lot of wargaming there. And as far as I'm aware, there's still an auction at Gen Con, by the way. Doug is talking. Yeah, Doug is right. Doug remembers that Philadelphia Origins was in the downtown convention center, which had just been built. Origins, I don't think, was the first event there, but it was one of the very first events there, surrounded by condemned buildings and peep shows. It was a record at the time. I'm sure it's not a record anymore. Heat wave had hit the East Coast. It was like 106 at one point when we were eating outside in some outdoor restaurant for some insane reason. It was not. The convention center was beautiful, but the surrounding area and the climate at the time was not good. So. Oh yeah, I remember the whole union thing where you had to. There was a lot of stress from vendors who were having problems getting. I was a vendor at that show, actually. Were having problems getting their stuff taken care of from the union people at Philly. So, nor did we even get to go see the Rocky statue. I'm not sure that was even there at the time, to be honest. It may have been. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was, actually. Jeff says it's too bad that Origins did not develop like San Diego Comic-Con and Dragon Con. Jeff, I totally disagree with that. Origins is a gaming convention. It has had its flirtation with the big media show thing, but it has more or less stayed true to its mission as a gaming show. Both Dragon Con to a less. I've never been to Dragon Con or Comic Con. I know only what I've seen on the internet. So. Comic-Con is a huge media event now, and Dragon Con does have some gaming there, but it started as a media event, and the gaming presence there, as far as I can tell, is pretty incidental. So what will you see gaming-wise at Origins? You will see a lot of board games, a lot of board games. You will see. Jason, I have no specific agenda other than the dealer's room, and hopefully we can do something with the boardroom, and we'll see what happens. So, yeah, now it's like, no, 95 degrees, who cares? So I'm just glad it wasn't 95 degrees today when the power went out. So, Stegler points out that in Philadelphia they boo Santa Claus. So Achilles, thanks for stepping by. Carl is willing to assist people loading CSV. So you can open a CSV file in Excel. Just right-click, assuming you're on a Windows machine. If you're on a Mac, then God help you. But if you're on a Windows machine, right-click and open with, and then pick Excel, and it should just pretty much open. So, and then maybe you'll have to fiddle with formatting or something like that, but it should pretty much just work. So anyway, Origins starts as a wargame convention, and is run for the first couple of years by board wargame companies. So it is dominated, and is I've got I should have bust this out. I actually have an old, I think, Moves or Fire and Movement magazine, which is like an Origins feature from the mid '70s, I think. And it's neat because it's got like, here are some pictures of Redmond Simonson. So the complexion of the show has nevertheless changed a great deal. So if you go this weekend, what you are, and I have not looked at the event list at all, what you are likely to see is a large quantity of board games, a modest number of miniatures games, many of which will actually be historicals rather than like 40K and that kind of stuff. A bigger percentage than you might think. Although I think if you're a historical miniatures person, you're much better off going to Historicon or Advance the Colors or something like that. You'll see a lot of RPG events. You'll see a fair number of LARPs and card games, and some general non-hobby board games like there's usually a chess tournament, for example, something like that. Scott Bell, thanks for letting me know Coalition arrived safely. So, what you won't see is like a war game section in the event list, right? They're considered board games. The lest you hear, Brant from the Armchair Dragoons and I, who is we'll get to this, but they're running the war games area at Origins again this year. We've been through this many times over the years, and there is a fair amount of wargaming that's still happening at Origins, but it is pretty much ad hoc work. It's either in the wargames area, which is quite small, or it is ad hoc wargaming, and most of that happens in the war room, or the board room, I should say. There's, in addition to that, there will be some other things that will be happening that are, war games like Axis and Allies and Memoir 44 and things like that will be happening in their own areas. Andrew Rowland from sunny Australia, thanks for stopping by. Stigler, I love Scrapple. I do like Geta better, which is a Southern Ohio thing, Southern Ohio, Northern Kentucky thing. But I do like Scrapple, actually. Even if it's got the organ meats in it, I actually like it. Jeff Beeler's Chromebook is being fried by the Gamma CSV file. It is probably a really pretty big file. So, Advance the Colors is the same weekend as Origins, which is unfortunate. And I believe Advance the Colors actually had the date first, and then Origins moved on top of it. And, what can Advance the Colors do? So if you are a historical miniatures guy, as much as I would love to say you should go to Origins, well, you should go to Origins, but you'll probably find Advance the Colors if that's what you want to do, to be your better option this weekend, right? And that's about half an hour, 40 minutes maybe, west of here being Columbus. So let's see where we're at here. I decided to start with the Vichy French because I knew how the tray was getting laid out. So let's hope I don't have to relocate because my wife got a big promotion. That is a thing that could be happening. So if you want to do wargaming at Origins, let's hop over to the Origins webpage first of all. So let's go to this thing. Here's the Wikipedia article where I got all my information, because Wikipedia is completely trustworthy. All right, so here's a part of the webpage at originsgamefair.com. So here's the exhibit room, and I'll point out some things here in a second as well. This is part of the board, this big center section. I hate the way this is laid out, but it's what they want to do, so whatever. The board room, which you need a ribbon to get into, but which has an enormous library of board games, including some war games, but you can bring your own stuff too, is in the center of this giant exhibit hall. Okay, and then off to one side, what is there anything else interesting here? Ares Games is over in the corner. Here's some D&D stuff. I can't read half these things because they're super tiny. But here is the Armchair Dragoons section over here. So this, if I'm reading this correctly, over to the left here is that right? Am I thinking that correctly? Up is going to be north, actually, on this map, if that helps at all, which it probably does not. So as far as I'm concerned, while, you know, there's some tiny print here that I can't read that maybe includes some really fascinating stuff. I mean, I love Origins, and I'll get to why in a minute here. I want to finish with the maps so I don't have to cause anybody any more eye strain. And then the back end here is probably some more vendors. And then here is the exhibit hall / vendor area, okay? The section in the back is going to be pretty much either cosplay people or artists or things like that. A lot of the other stuff is publishers or distributors or retailers or a variety of things. So let me point out some things that I think are fairly interesting. And there are going to be some RPG people in here too. Right up front, we have Steve Jackson Games. I will definitely take a look at their booth. I haven't bought anything from them in a while, but Ares Games is the people that do the new edition of War of the Ring with all the little fancy miniatures. I might pick that up. We'll see. Yellow, don't really know anything about. I mean, I've seen the name for years. I don't know what they do because they don't do anything I'm interested in. SRG Universe, I don't know what that is, but it sounds like there's a universe or something. That might be interesting. Indie Press Revolution, they do some indie RPG stuff. I will definitely take a look at what they have to offer. Here's Gmt Games. They do some interesting things that I do like. I'm looking for Decision here. Okay, so Chaosium and Decision Games are right next to one another up here. We're not allowed to say anything else about Decision Games tonight, though. And then Ohio University, for some reason, has a huge booth. I don't know why. Nor do I know what the blue means, actually. Shawnee State University, Rustbit Studio, no idea. I saw Iron Wind Metals here. Iron Wind Metals owns the molds for the old Ral Partha stuff. Just if you don't know that. So if you want any of the old Ral Partha miniatures, go check out Iron Wind Metals. And I believe they are all metal, too. And then... what else of interest is there here? Here's Enterprise Games. Has an end cap. If you're not familiar with Enterprise Games, they're out of Indiana. I don't know if Don has a physical store or not. I have heard that he does, and then I have heard that he doesn't, and I think I heard that from the same people. So they will be repping GMT at the show. They will have, if every other year is anything to go by, they will have basically everything from GMT that is currently available, and probably some old stuff too, and a smattering of other things. And it's all also, I guess I'll also mention, even though we're not allowed to talk about them this week, that Decision will typically be selling some stuff from other publishers as well. So bear that in mind. So that is, I mean, I will walk the entire room multiple times. I'm looking for Studio 2, which is a distributor. Oh, if you're a Wargamer and you're there, check out Cool Stuff. They might have some stuff. I don't know. They haven't for several years. So I don't know if they'll be worth stopping for Wargames or not. They haven't been for several years, but they have been in the past. So I will definitely give their booth a walkthrough, I'm sure. Anyway, let's turn that off. Go back here so we don't have to get distracted. All right. I don't know about the ribbon. What are you guys talking about the ribbon? Okay, so Achilles, where would you be coming from if you want to go to Origins? I mean, yeah, so one of the reasons I like Origins is it's really a quite large convention. I believe in 2019 they had over 20,000 unique visitors. That's really high. And turnstile attendance, which is how they like to count it, because then the number looks like 50 or 60,000. But 20,000 is really high, right? I mean, when it started in Columbus, they were drawing like 3 or 4 or 5 or something like that. So 20,000 is a lot of people. and I don't know if this will be true this year or not, but one of the things that it feels like a smaller convention, particularly if you do the RPG stuff, because the RPG stuff is over. In previous years, I'm not sure that'll be the case here. It might not be. In previous years, the RPG stuff was all over at the Hyatts, which kind of had its own area. That was kind of almost all RPG stuff. So I'll have to take a look at the events list. So if you want to get into war games, get yourself a boardroom ribbon. I don't know what that costs this year. In the past, it was $20, something like that. And that's basically, you can hang out in the boardroom as much as you want, play all the games in there. Achilles would be coming from North Carolina. So I definitely would say, if you're not like a frequent visitor for the convention scene, Origins as a next step up is a better idea than Gen Con. But I haven't been to Gen Con in years, so I don't know what the complexion of Gen Con is anymore. So I don't blame you. It's not that far from North Carolina. It's 5 or 6 hours, something like that. That's not so bad. I did say I'm not flying to Connecticut again. I'm not driving to Connecticut again, but that's also in November, where you have the chance of getting hit with bad weather. So if you want to do, it really depends on what you want to do at the convention. If you want to do general board games, then Origins is hard to beat. It's probably the best convention, with the possible exception of BGG Con, for general board games. For war games, you're better off going to a number of other events, including WBC, which of course didn't happen this year, or Buckeye Game Fest, which of course didn't happen this year, although that's happening in February, or Consim World Expo. I don't know what the situation is going to be come next June or July, but if my situation is the same then as it is now, then I am almost certainly going to want to go to Consim World Expo, which would be awesome. There is a hot chicken takeover in Columbus. I'll talk about the food, because so when I started, I didn't move to Columbus until 2010, right? But I started coming to Origins in 1996. So we would drive down from Cleveland, the Cleveland area, usually with friends, and sometimes we'd end up with a room at the Hyatt, and sometimes we'd end up deciding we were going to sleep in the bushes, and sometimes we decided, screw it, we're going to get a room at some Motel 6 a fair distance away. So if you want to do RPG stuff, let me fill that crack in, because if you want to do like collectible card games, which includes Magic and Pokemon, but is not limited to Magic and Pokemon, it does also include, for example, the new, well, I don't know about new, but Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, the card game for that. There's a huge tournament of that at Origins, and has been for years. RPG stuff is very strongly represented. It's tons of D&D, obviously, but it's very strongly represented at Origins as well. Ohio Dominican. There's also people. There's also a very good dealer's room, particularly if you're into board games. A little less so if you're into RPGs or war games. But I've never not walked out of Origins with a huge number of war games. So I have no reason to complain. And the fact that there's 2 war game dealers is pretty much the same number of war game dealers that we've had in the last several years, too. There will probably be a handful of random people selling war games as well. So, okay, so Origins is held at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. There are 3 hotels actually, attached to the Greater Columbus Convention Center. There's a Hyatt Regency, which is connected by a sky bridge. There is the Hilton across High Street, which is connected by another sky bridge, which is virtually impossible to find unless you know exactly where it is already. And there is the Drury Inn, which is connected to the Hyatt through the food court on the ground floor of the Hyatt. Now, one of the things that you got to do with these things is eat, okay? Convention Center food at the Greater Columbus Convention Center is not particularly better or worse than it is at any other convention center, which means that it's not all that good. But on the ground floor of the Hyatt, there is a food court, and that food court has a number of things that I think are really good. There is a sort of generic Asian place that I don't like particularly. There is a chicken and egg, which is a Euro type of Greek establishment, which is pretty good and has breakfast. There is a Subway, which is Subway, and it's only a little more expensive than a regular Subway. I don't like Subway, by the way, but I will typically eat Subway at Origins because I can get a sandwich for $6. You are not supposed to bring in your own food. People nevertheless bring in their own food, which reminds me I got to go get some kind of bars of some kind this week. There is some. Let me address that. There is some cosplay at Origins. There is not typically that much cosplay at Origins in comparison to other events like your Dragon Cons or your Comic Cons or your even Gen Cons. There will still be plenty of people that are doing cosplay. There are people hosting conventions on cruise ships. Actually, that is a thing that's happening. Satine Phoenix is doing that sometime next year, I think. And that's happened in the past as well. Fucko says that there's a new hotel being built right now. I haven't really been down there in some months, so I don't know. When I was working downtown, I could walk there, and I would sometimes do that. Particularly as Origins got closer and closer, and I got more and more excited about it, I would walk down there and say, "Oh, you can start now." Lynn says the new hotel is an expansion of the Hilton. Now, the Origins has sometimes overflowed into that Hilton, and it I don't know about this year, but it always overflows into the Hyatt. It's not even overflow; like half the convention happens at the Hyatt. So we're doing pretty good here. I had to actually cut a lot of this. If I didn't say this particular counter sheet, the die cutting is fairly dodgy. That's why I've had to trim some edges with the little scissors here. And I had to cut a fair number of these out of the sprue. So the main drag in Columbus is High Street, runs north-south, and the convention center is on High Street. Directly across from the convention center on High Street is a strip of bars and restaurants, a couple of which are quite good. There is, for example, Barley's Brew Pub, which is a brew pub which has really good beer and which has, I think, the first or second best beer I've ever had. I had at Barley's, and it was unfortunately a one-time thing. Not sure how I'm organizing the leaders yet, but at this moment, I'm sorting them by morale. What else is over there? Bear Burger is over there. Bear Burger is a national chain that has a number of what most people would call exotic meats to get burgers like elk and bison and stuff like that, wild boar, that kind of thing. I did have a elk burger with duck bacon and Amish blue cheese one year, which was really good. Convention here. And the Hyatt, by the way, is also where Buckeye Game Fest is held nowadays. At least last year. And it's canceled for 2021, but it has been rescheduled for 2022. I think that's in March. We'll talk about that when it gets closer. Jeff, I don't know about how that'll work out this year, but yes, the Big Bar on 2 is usually a big gathering space. There is a Hampton Inn very close on High Street as well if you're into Hampton Inn. I like Hampton Inn, but you know. Brian Jarvis is asking the percentage of war games to non-war games. The percentage of war games is like 1 or 2%, to be honest. If you want war games, and war games are the only thing you want to do, then I'm not sure that... Brant, thanks for stopping by. Finally, he shows up. The person who is running the war games area for Origins shows up in the Origins discussion. Thank you so much. Family commitments. Ha! Your family's here! What are you talking about? Anyway. So, there's also in the basement, ground floor of the Hyatt, there's also... Oh, what's it called? Fame's Diner is my personal favorite place in the Hyatt food court to eat. There's like two sides. One side is like burgers and fries, and the other side is Indian food. And the Indian food is not like... There'll be like 4 options a day. But it's really good, and they have a tandoor literally behind the guy who takes your order. And if you order naan, he will reach into the tandoor, pull out the naan, stick it in a paper bag, and hand it to you. It is the best naan I have had in Columbus, Ohio. And it's not close. Now, across from the convention center, across High Street, on that block, so we talk about Barley's Brew Pub and Bear Burger, and there's a couple other places there that I maybe have eaten at and maybe I haven't. Behind that block is a place called North Market. I do recommend Barley's. It's really good. Bear Burger, if you're into that, it can be really good. I highly recommend going over to North Market. It's probably going to be super packed, even in a plague year. But I always go to North Market. There is whatever kind of international food you're interested in, it's probably over there. If you want a couple different Asian options that are over there, including Thai, Mongolian, Japanese, and maybe something that I'm forgetting about. There's a Somali restaurant over there that's really good. The ramen place is really good. There's like a Belgian pastries place that's really good. There's like an Eastern European type place where you can get kielbasis and pierogies and things like that. Which, if you don't know what pierogies are and you're going to Origins, go to North Market and get the pierogies, okay? But it's all really good. And the prices are, not insane. So, Elevator is pretty good brew pub as well. I like Barley's better. I've consistently liked Barley's better. But, that depends who you talk to. Beer style is a thing, too. So there's a sushi place, Kevin. There's a sushi place in that block across from the convention center. That with Barley's, there's a sushi place over there. I have not been there, so I can't vouch for it. I do know it's popular. Katzinger's is not at North Market anymore. That is the stall that the ramen place is in. But the ramen is awesome. Get the ramen. So if you want Katzinger's, you got to go down the street for it. I don't think there's Filipino food there, which is too bad. We should have that. I don't think we have a Filipino community here in Columbus. I mean, I could be wrong, but Barley's general manager is also a gamer. That's true. There will be actual events that are taking place at Barley's during the convention. All right. Okay, Brian Jarvis asks if Origin started out as a wargaming convention. I did say that already. It did in 1975. Was actually run that first year by Avalon Hill. The next year was run by SPI. The next year was run by Avalon Hill again. And then, as far as I can tell, it was handed off to Gamma for whatever reason. Middle West Distillery is in Short North. It's theoretically walkable, but it'd be a hike. I'd Uber that if I were going up to Middle West. I mean, I'm a fat dude. I would Uber that. But even if I wasn't a fat dude, I would Uber that. That'd be quite a hike. Brian Jarvis is asking, bang for travel budget buck, top 3 cons for wargaming. There's an additional variable there that I should ask, but I don't need the answer, right? Andrew, we do not have particular. We can't really get Aussie food here in Ohio. You can get Tim Tams though at Meijer. I can tell you that. Um, but if you want to do monster gaming, then your best convention buy is. There's a lot of variables, right? Are you paying for hotel? What's the travel distance? Can you drive or do you have to fly? Anywhere in the U.S. I can tell you there was a Filipino community in Cleveland, but I don't know of any Filipino restaurants in Cleveland, which doesn't mean a thing, by the way. It's hard to say because, like I said, there's so many variables there. I did talk in the convention episode, though, if I were forced to limit myself to a single wargaming convention, one a year, I would go to Winterfest. That I'm committed to that decision. On the other hand, aside from the fact that there's, it may be that the complexion of games that get played at Winterfest is not to your taste, in which case you might be better off with something like a WBC or a Consim World Expo. Outback is not Aussie food. Outback is barely food, unfortunately, anymore. It's not as good as it used to be. So, Andrew, funny story. I haven't really talked about this on this stream. I've talked about it a little bit on Dan's stream. So for many years, I was in the Society for Creative Anachronism, which is a medieval recreation group that has a big event in Pennsylvania every year, where typically somewhere between 10 and 13,000 people show up, dressed in funny clothes, and hit each other with clubs. The folks who one of our camps that our camp was friends with. Was the Kingdom of Lokak, which is Australia and New Zealand. So we actually, every year, they would bring us things like Tim Tams and Vegemite and stuff like that. So if I seem slightly more familiar with Aussie food than your typical American, that is why. Blame Lokak. So Scott Bell says that if you have a number of people, you can rent a condo at WBC and get off relatively inexpensively. I have heard that, and I don't know at what number of people that makes sense. Yeah, Jeff, I hit that same thing. I didn't feel like they'd been running it that long either, but they have been. Now, bear in mind, they didn't manage the show every one of those years. For a while, it was being run by a convention management company. For a while, that was Endon. And then Endon got bought by Wizards of the Coast, and it became a political football that nobody wanted to deal with. So they did not renew that contract, which is too bad, because everybody said that Endon did a good job running Origins. So Brant mentions that there's some big events at the Wargaming area, which is actually labeled Armchair Dragoons this year, which are typically the Kriegspiels and the command post exercises. Those are really cool events that I strongly encourage wargamers to participate in at least once, so you see them. I think they are really valuable experiences, and those events are not something you will find at a WBC. I don't know about WBC, but I don't think anybody runs anything like that at Consim World Expo, for example. There will be a Team Coin event. So I will express confusion as to what the difference is between Vegemite and Marmite. I mean, I know they're different, and I know they're made with different things, but I think the key ingredient in both of them is spent brewer's yeast. I actually have a jar of Marmite in the cabinet, and there's uses for it. I mean, I don't eat it out of the jar with a spoon. That would be weird. But there's uses for it. You put it in brown gravies. You'll never know it's there, and it adds tons and tons and tons of umami to your brown gravy. Spam, Vegemite, and Spam. So I've tasted Vegemite, and to me, Marmite basically tastes the same. Mike Orwick, Brant will almost certainly not play a game at Origins. I've never seen it happen. And we've been doing this for a while now. So Jeff Beeler, you can just show up at Winterfest, just hand them $100 or whatever it costs ask who to hand money to and hand the money to that person, and you're good to go. I have never had a problem with the drive to Winterfest, even though it's in February. And, you would think, now it snowed us in once or twice there, but oh no, we'll have to order pizza. We'll just have to stay in and play war games. Isn't this tragic? Yeah, so Brant mentions that you need a bigger event to have the critical mass to pull off Kriegspiels and stuff like that. At least impromptu Kriegspiels. And they have, I don't know about impromptu Kriegspiels. I mean, it was a planned event, right? But there are people that just like walk up and say, "Hey, this looks cool. Can I get in on this?" And they, and they let them in. So, Jeff Beeler, there are room parties at Origins, and I've been to one or two over the years. I'm not much of a room parties guy. I'm really kind of square. I don't know if you guys have picked up on that or not. So, Jim Ozarski is playing the role of Academy Games tonight. Oh, so he's late, is what you're saying. If Academy Games had a room party at Origins, they would be late for it. So, and they're in Ohio. I don't remember exactly where in Ohio they are, but they're in Ohio. Brant will tell us. It's all good. Agray Day, Questing Beast just did a video about Kriegspiel. So is that the Avalon Hill Kriegspiel or like the actual Kriegspiel? Because the Avalon Hill Kriegspiel is not worth anybody's time. So Jeff, yeah. So if you drive through Windsor and Detroit, the drive to Winterfest is maybe an hour from there. So yeah, assuming the border is open, which is a thing that we have to be concerned about. But assuming the border's open, yeah, it's a pretty easy drive, and it's a wonderful event. But the other thing is you don't want, because it's an event that I think is only going to draw like 20 or 30 people. So you can't just show up and count on you being able to get into stuff. So you kind of need to arrange it with somebody. Reach out to me on email, and we'll get you in there on the board to talk about it. I'm missing something about Huey Lewis in the news here now. Best place to hang out and tell Wargaming war stories, I would imagine, is at Consummate World Expo, personally. But that's where well, again, this year aside, that's where there will be hundreds and hundreds of people playing Hex Encounter war games specifically. Now, I'll also mention, though, in terms of good value for the buck, and I don't know if this is going to continue to be true, but at least this year, Compass Expo looks like a great value. The hotel is cheap. The flights are cheap. Nothing else will be cheap in Connecticut. Connecticut has high sales tax on damn it, I'm going to have to cut these out, aren't I? Connecticut has high sales tax on basically everything, but, take the good with the bad, I guess. But at least the airfare is cheap, and you're not going to spend that much on. I don't think you're going to spend that much on food. So, one of the things that I tend to eat pretty good at conventions. Not at Winterfest, because there's not that much selection, because it's Sandusky, Ohio in the wintertime. But when I would drive to Columbus for Origins, I'd eat pretty good. We would go to I don't know if this place is even open right now, but the Flatiron. It's across the street from the Hyatt. Really good, like traditional American steakhouse. I consider going to North Market to be pretty good eating. I do miss the Katzingers, because I like Katzingers is like a traditional New York style deli, with very good corned beef sandwiches, and pastrami for that matter. So I miss having them in the North Market. Jason W points out no food tax in Connecticut. So last time I was there, right, which was last Compass Expo, which was I think 2019 or whatever it was. This screwed everybody up. The Jim Ozarski, Lancaster, PA in July. That is, yeah, he's talking about Historicon. Lancaster, PA was very briefly the capital of the United States, by the way. If you don't know, the capital, Philadelphia, was overrun by the British, and they relocated very briefly to Lancaster, PA. There you go. All right. So we're closing in on one full counter sheet after about an hour. This will keep me busy for another 10 or 15 minutes, I think. Historicon is at a casino? Yay. I mean, there was a wave of casino legalization in the United States. There's 4 or 5 casinos in Ohio now. There's one in Toledo as well. Oh, look at that. King of Prussia, PA. Valley Forge Casino Resort. Oh, and Dice Tower West, which I think is in March, will be held at the Rio in Las Vegas. Anyway, last time I was in Connecticut, I if I'm going somewhere, I would normally buy like 10 cans or whatever of dip to get me through the trip. All right, this was a problem when I was, say, in Mexico, because I was there for 2 months. But normally I can have enough. I could, I don't do it anymore, so we don't have to worry about this now. But I ran out at the end of the trip to Compass Expo last time, and I had, it's like the last day, so I was going to stop, and I stopped at some gas station, and one can of dip was like $15, and I was like, oh my god, I'm dying here. So glad I don't do that anymore. Iggy Critical asks, is Historicon a minis con? Yes, it is. It would be awesome if there was more board stuff there, and I think there is a little bit, but I think it's almost overwhelmingly miniatures. Jeff Beeler says Sandusky is the original home of Marcon. Really? I've never been to Marcon. Marcon nowadays is held here in Columbus. I've never been there. One of these days, I mean, I don't even know, is it going to survive the pandemic? It might not. Who knows? I haven't looked into it, though, so I do not know what the status of Marcon is at all. Yeah, so there's a casino in Cleveland, there's a casino in Toledo, there's a casino in Columbus, and a casino in Cincinnati. I don't know if there's a casino in Youngstown, but that's only because I haven't been to Youngstown in at least 5 years. So, no, I got no problem with miniatures gaming. I just don't want to do it. So, you guys have fun. We're going to miss you at Origins, though, Jim. I can tell you that. So... I really found myself really missing Gen Con a lot this particular year, and I don't know why this year specifically. I mean, it's not like I've been to Gen Con anytime recently. Looking into... Yeah, I haven't been to Gen Con since 2002, so it's been almost 20 years. John Clark. I believe there is a statewide mask mandate now, so expect to have to wear a mask at Origins. I haven't checked the policy, but that is what I expect will occur. Mickey, you may have offended Jim by suggesting that he might have once considered playing bolt action. I'm with Stigler on the miniatures question. It's not that miniatures aren't worth doing. It's that the handling of the miniatures themselves is its own huge task, and I don't want to have to engage in that task. So, Cataclysm now. Winterfest is almost entirely monster war games. There will typically be somewhere between 3 and 7 large monster war games, and 4 or 6 smaller games that will still be fairly large war games. This is why I'm saying know what you're getting into before you go. That's good advice for any convention, by the way, not just Winterfest. At a convention like Origins or Gen Con, they're so big you get a pretty good chance of finding something to do. I will tell you, I'm not into. Well, I don't do miniatures, so I don't really have to talk about it anymore. And I'm not especially tempted by historical miniatures. I think if the minis game that tempts me the most is the Lord of the Rings game from Games Workshop, to be honest. Which I've played, and it is actually a pretty cool game. And I have a whole army sitting in a tray in the garage that's not painted. So there's that. Now, another thing you could probably talk me into is doing naval miniatures, which is a bit of a special case because you don't necessarily need a huge number of miniatures. If you wanted to do Age of Sail, for example, you could get by with like 6 painted ships, right? Like, ever. So, do I have any more support web? I do. Okay. We're going to have to cut those out, so. Agray Day says, minis is like owning a boat. Presumably, in the sense that a boat is a hole in the water into which one pours money. Yes, so yeah, I'm right. So, and there's people that do miniatures on Vassal too, and I gotta admit I don't really understand why anybody does that or what the appeal would be. But you know, if people are having fun with that, cool. I just don't understand why. I don't really get how Vassal is a good platform for that. Tabletop Simulator, on the other hand, is a great platform for that. And a less great platform for many, but not all, Hexacounter games. Okay, let's see. Infantry guns, anti-tank rifles, demo charges. I don't know how I'm organizing this. Right now I'm just picking up the machine guns. I think organization of support weapons is going to be machine guns in one compartment and everything else in another. Scott Bell says, what if Decision produced miniatures? Then Stigler would hate them twice. What is this? That's an infantry gun. Matt Taylor says one of the first games he ever played was Blue. Well, I assume he's saying Blue Max, converted to a miniatures game. See, that kind of thing where the number of miniatures you would need is relatively small. You could talk me into something like that. In addition to that, like, say I got into Age of Sail miniatures and I got my 6 Age of Sail miniatures and pronounced myself done, I could use those with Wooden Ships and Iron Men very, very readily. Or with Close Action, or, you know, I suppose that's true of Flying Colors as well, but then you'd want more ships. So there's a lot of talk about miniatures in the chat, and I feel out of my depth. So, E Critical says Battletech doesn't need a ton of minis per side. Nah, it doesn't all at once, but you need quite a few miniatures because you need all of the different mechs. I mean, technically you could say that with Age of Sail ships too, but, I mean, how many people could tell the difference between, like, this sloop and this frigate, right? I think you'd probably be fine on an Age of Sail level with, here's a couple of big ships and here's a couple of smaller ships. Axis and Allies airplanes. I mean, if you're doing that, you might as well do Wings of Glory, which I think those are pre-painted figures, if I'm not mistaken. But there's an Age of Sail version of that. Age of Sail version of that too. We're about to start putting these in the tray. Mickey's asking Jim, you know, as the resident Napoleonic / miniatures expert. So, Critical, you can play them unpainted, but if you do, you are considered a Philistine. So, it's probably not a great idea for your cred as a miniatures gamer to play with unpainted miniatures. Jeff, I am guessing that vaping is not permitted in the convention area. That is my guess. Again, I haven't looked at the policy. I'll be okay. My vape has not had nicotine in it for a while. So, you know, when I started going to Origins, you could smoke indoors, man. And there was no smoking in the gaming areas, but like up at the bar, you could smoke. Columbus was one of the first places in the country at the city level to ban indoor smoking. So there was a tobacconist in that little mall food court down in the bottom level of the Hyatt for a long time, actually, that I would typically buy a big stinky cigar. I have messed this up, haven't I? There we go. That I would then go up in the big bar on too and smoke it in there. You can't do that anymore. And haven't been able to for a long time. And to be honest, there was a lot of resistance to that. But it's really a better experience for everybody to not have the smoke. Scott Bell, thanks for stopping by. These are DM'd infantry guns. See, that's the problem. You can't play with unpainted. I mean, you can play with unpainted miniatures, but everybody thinks you're a tool if you do. So, so confused. Trying to keep these things straight. Charles Latorra, the older you get, you might not be able to tell. My eyes aren't what they used to be, I can tell you that. So, if somebody's miniatures are painted that badly, I probably would notice eventually, but not for quite a while of playing with them. So, I think generally speaking, unpainted miniatures are considered more distasteful than badly painted miniatures. So the only the smoking area that I'm aware of where people go to smoke, and let me think this out. Last Origins, was I still smoking at the time? Maybe. I don't remember. You could go outside in the little plazas right outside the convention center, or you would have to go. There was like a covered area out in front of the Hyatt, sort of not really in front of, sort of behind the Hyatt, between the Hyatt and the convention center. There was a smoking area, and that's where the cigar folks would end up in recent years. So I can tell you that I was the last Origins I went to where I was smoking in both of those areas. So, which doesn't mean I wasn't being rude, but nobody came and yelled at me either. So I wasn't doing it inside. So I think I'm going to say this, and I think I'm being accurate. In the gaming area, not at the adjacent bar, the last person I have seen smoking in the gaming area at a convention was Gary Gygax. So it's been a while, and that was in like 95 or 96 or something like that. I'd have to look it up, and I'm not going to. So okay. Dismantled machine guns. Now we're trying to do that. John Longshore's trying to be provocative now. I mean, I don't have any desire to. I mean, I might make fun of them in I think a fairly mild way, and I hope you folks would tell me if it's too much. I have no desire to actually antagonize miniatures gamers. I have no desire to antagonize people who enjoy things like Carcassonne or things like Combat Commander. That I don't enjoy those games is my problem. So I got I didn't set this up, unfortunately. So I guess we're not looking at the template card for ASL counter trays. Maybe we'll do that next week. I mean, part of the appeal of games of any kind is their visual, other than RPGs, which this can apply to RPGs too, but a lot of people don't play RPGs with miniatures or terrain or scenery, so it doesn't apply in those cases. But a lot of the appeal in tabletop games is the visual aspect of it, the pieces or the map or the miniatures or the terrain or whatever it is that you're using, right? I will not pretend that I do not care about graphics and physical presentation and how pretty a game is, because I do. That was one of the things that got me into tabletop war games when I was a kid, was just the kind of colorful little cardboard squares everywhere. So that is important, and to a lot of people, I think that miniatures are always, by necessity, going to be more visually appealing to some people than they are to other people. I don't find that to be the case, personally, right? I find a beautiful Hex Encounter war game to be just as visually appealing as an attractive miniatures game. I think I'm in the minority on that. Now Andrew's got a special case going on here, so let's be clear about this, okay? Andrew's Napoleon's Imperium setup was a specific game for which a specific set of miniatures was used. That's a bit of a special case as opposed to like general purpose minis. Keep looking for the dismantled machine guns. We'll take a look at that. Brant, you guys have the Armchair Dragoons events list on the webpage, right? I'm going to take a look at it in a second here. All right, so let's hop over to that real quick. All right, here's armchairdragoons.com. Here are what somebody says is the relevant exhibitors to wargamers. Okay, so let's talk about that. That is a thing that we need to mention. Game science, maybe. As you might know, I didn't hear this until like a couple days after it happened. So if you haven't heard this, I won't be shocked. Where's all the DCs? Lou Zocchi collapsed while setting up his booth at Gen Con, right? I don't know how old Lou is. I know Lou's getting up in years, and I definitely hope that Lou is with us for many more years. But I do know he had to pay a visit to the hospital. Hopefully he is okay, and hopefully he will be back at Origins this year. We can all hope. Otherwise, Academy Games, Ares Games, who I've mentioned, I'll take a look and see what else they have going on. Black Oak Workshop, which apparently makes dice. Catastrophe Games, I don't know who that is. Brant can fill us in if he wants to. That Sergeant's game is actually pretty neat, by the way. Decision Games, everyone's favorite publisher. Easy Roller Dice Company, more dice. Don't know who they are either, but I'm sure I will stop and take a look. Because, who doesn't need more dice? Enterprise Games, we've already talked about them. Highly recommended by me, by the way. Game Science, maybe, and Steve Jackson Games. So Steve Jackson Games has some games that I think you must reasonably consider war games. So, alright. So let's see what we have going on here with the Vichy French. Put these here. These here. Okay. Heroes here, I think. Machine guns. Armor leaders. Oh, actually, they mentioned that Lou was hospitalized. Okay. So the joke, of course, was that Academy Games was late for the map too. All right, so this is just the stuff that Armchair Dragoons is running, as opposed to all of the wargaming events, right? In addition to that, there will be some. What the hell is this? In addition to that, I'm going to ask for clarification on a couple of these events, Brant. There's going to be a lot of like pickup wargaming in the boardroom. Okay, so Tank Duel, that's presumably the GMT Tank Duel. Tank on Tank, that is the Lock and Load Publishing Tank on Tank game. Second World War at Sea, Brant, is this the Avalanche Press Second World War at Sea? Please confirm. Distant Plane, we all know what coin is at this point. Commands and Colors Napoleonics, that's me. More Tank on Tank, more Second World War at Sea, Age of Dogfights. I don't really know anything about that. Tank on Tank and Age of Dogfights. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of stuff here. So, let's see. Yeah, Doug, that sounds about right. We'll have to check out Catastrophe Games. So, worth checking out. Alright, so dismantled weapons will get a compartment. And I think I'm right in that, at least for the Vichy, we're going to do a compartment for machine guns and a compartment for every other support weapon. And that's a whole counter sheet worth of Vichy French done. Alright. I'll have to take a look at that Catastrophe Games. So that's cool. I will probably be doing some video from the show as well. We'll see how exactly that works out, but I will definitely do a walkthrough of something. Oh, cool! I might need to participate in that. I've been wanting to try that for a while. So, all right, let's grab. Let's see here, Critigear. Did we really need more? Oh, I guess so. Guess we did. Age of Dogfights. I've seen the name Age of Dogfights. I'm aware of what it is. I just don't know anything about it. It's a game about dogfights. Pretty sure. All right, so we're done with the. We're done with the Vichy. So that means that we need to figure out. I've all these trays labeled already that I've created for the ASL trays. They don't have the compartment labels. The Vichy are identical to the 1940 French. Looking at the national capabilities chart, which I happen to have in front of me. No, they're pretty much exactly the same. They all have the same numbers on them. Some of the exponents might be different. Like vehicle availability will obviously be different for Free French because they're, a lot of American vehicles, for example. But the counters are on the Vichy have the German color border. So that'd be a long hike for Stigler, I'll tell you that. I completely sympathize with people that have just decided, you know what, I'm just not going to go to conventions this year. That is a completely reasonable decision to make. These say Free French support weapons. And they're a different color. Interesting. Okay. Is there Free French? Are these Free French? I don't even know. French vehicles. French Dinant vehicles. Dinant is the historical module that's in. I feel like I'm missing something that Brandt is responding to here. So Brandt says he'll be doing some live stuff on the Armchair Dragoons Twitter feed and on the Facebook feed. They don't have enough subscribers to go live on YouTube from mobile, though. Yeah, so that is a thing that I think I can do it. I think I've done it. I don't know. They keep changing those numbers, the requirements for specific features. I don't know why. That seems stupid to me. I do recall that when I tried to go live from Origins one time, I couldn't because the video's uploaded, but they were private. So I might try to do it. Let me put it that way. I don't know what the subscriber cutoff is. I might be done clipping, to be honest. It's one counter sheet. I guess it's some progress, huh? Chances are good that the other counter sheets would not have had the die cutting problem on the one that I observed. So, all right. So we'll call that a day, and we got a decent number of French done. French will get 3 trays. Nobody else gets 3 trays except the Americans. And the only reason that French get 3 trays is because there's basically 3 separate orders of battle. One for the 1940 French, one for the Free French, and one for the Vichy French. The Americans actually have 3 different orders of battle as well. One for the U.S. Army, one for the early U.S. Army, which means the Philippines, and one for the Marines. So, Jeff Taylor clipped Credigaire during this stream last week. Awesome. Somebody discovered the Doris bead trays at Michael's, I think, and they're going to use them for their Goss games, which is totally fine. Stuka Joe was going live from mobile. Yeah, I do remember that, actually. So I think I can do it. I think I'm going to try it. I've tried it before and it failed, so, what's the worst that could happen? I assumed it was my screw-up last time. All right, please do, let me give you the reminders. Please do thumbs up the video and subscribe to the channel and all that jazz if you have not done those things already. There's a lot in the recent new versions of the ASL modules are really well done. The numbers on the counters are a little bigger, which is useful, but they're not that much bigger. The counters are still nice and thick. There tends to be tons of scenarios, and usually there's a historical module, even if it's fairly small in there. Brant needs to get going, so if anybody has Origins questions, ask him now. If Brant doesn't know, I might know. Iggy Critical says he uses deluxe bead trays. Now Brant has just retracted that message. So, and I actually considered that for a while. They take up more space, so I ended up sticking with these container store trays, which I like. There are advantages to the big trays, but the compartments are bigger, so you'd have to do, for example, in these trays, I have, for example, is this right? Here's the, it's upside down, but yeah. So here's the elite French Vichy squads, and here is their corresponding half squads. First line, half squad. In this case, green, half squad. You can't really do that in the Doris bead trays. At least unless you don't want to use just as many of them as you're using of these, and they're twice as big. So, Tony Mammal asked about the pocketed coin sheets for counter storage. I've seen that. That is not a solution that I particularly like. But if you're, say, putting together a travel set, then it might make a lot of sense. The only new modules I need are Hollow Legions and, Doom Battalions if they redo it again. Because I have the Avalon Hill Doom Battalions. And Rising Sun are the only 2 I need. And both of those will be printed at some point in the next year. I want to say my ASL stuff takes up about 25 of those of these trays. 20, 25, something like that. Bear in mind that I think you end up needing one of these for the historicals as well. So, like, I probably would use 2 just for red, maybe 1 for Red October. you'd need a smaller one for something like Hatton, though, because Hatton doesn't have that many counters. And I don't like the idea of mixing the historical counters in from the historical modules in with the rest of the ASL counters. I could swear that the Rommel counter was either done as a joke or was not the main publisher. These trays are 39 times 4, 36 compartments. The Doris bead trays are 32. They're bigger compartments, though. They're really nice. They have rounded bottoms and everything. Wade Moore, when do we think Yanks will be reprinted? My guess is no later than 2024. If that sounds flippant, it is not meant to be flippant. That is a realistic prognostication of when it will be reprinted. In my opinion, right? That's not based on any info that I have. That's just they print it. 3 months later, it's out of print, and then 3 years go by, and it's been out of print that whole time. So, I do. Buddy has a copy of Hollow Legions on order for me. I have to probably suck it up and pre-order Rising Sun myself. One of these days, I'd like to play more ASL. That would be awesome. All right, Mike Anthony says 1K subscribers is supposed to be the requirement for live mobile, so we've got that handled. So thank you, subscribers. So Brant is out the door. Thanks, Brant, for stopping by. I'm glad that you were able to make it for this particular show. It is optimal. We will touch base if necessary this week, and otherwise I will see you on Thursday night when I will be there doing the badge stuff. So, looking again at, are there any things, when do these events start? Yeah, Thursday is the 30th, so there's Second World War at Sea. Cool. Who's Rick Billings? I don't know who Rick Billings is. Do I know Rick Billings? There's a good chance I do. So, yeah, there's 4 people here, man. This is gonna be intense. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll have a good time. I'll end up walking out of the game with a good half a dozen, 5 to 10 war games probably. Maybe some RPG stuff. If Studio 2 is not going to be there, they're the people that sell the Traveler stuff, then I don't know that I am going to buy all that much RPG stuff. There's probably stuff from Chaosium that I will buy. The RuneQuest starter set which is packed with stuff. I'll probably buy that. Eric Burden asked if I had the old version of Croix de Guerre. Yeah, I did. 2. I had it twice, in fact. I had it originally, and then I sold all my stuff, all in kind of one big pile, and then I rebought somebody else's pile of stuff a few years ago. So I had all the old Avalon Hill versions of the modules, including the Rising Sun stuff. So I got the Japanese and stuff. I just would like the extra updated scenarios and the extra campaign game and all that other stuff. So, and I tossed all the boxes. I don't have the space for the boxes. I mean, I got a whole box that's this MMP Beyond Valor box that's you being eaten by counter sheets. So, Iggy Critical asks about Kickstarter 2nd edition reprint. If you are talking about that recent, I have finished this glass, I'll have you know. I am drinking a little bit less because it's interacting in an unpleasant way. It's not a disaster, but it's interacting in an unpleasant way with some medication that I'm on. So, if Iggy Critical is asking about the 2nd edition, the Call of Cthulhu reprint, I did get in on that Kickstarter, actually. I think I got the 2-inch box with the extra modules, so What else am I got kickstarted? There's the oh, let's talk about this actually. Let's pull this up. News you can use, right? All right. There's been a news update from GMT that was released late last week, so let's buzz through this real quick. All right. Gene was at the CSW Expo in Tempe. They will have weekend at the warehouse October 14th through the 17th. October's going to be a busy month if you're doing those things. Vaccinated only for that, and they will require masks. Supply chain and shipping status. This is kind of the guts of the whole thing. There's a 40-foot container that showed up at GMT containing counter trays and 2 and 3 inch empty white boxes. That's why we got counter trays back in stock. I have a big order of those on the way. I should check the tracking on that. They also know that there's another shipment containing 6 games that is at sea. And I think they don't know which 6 games that is. There is a huge shipment that is waiting to be put on a boat. That is 8 to 10 games worth. So, Musket and Pike Dual Pack is moving forward into art. Charlie is working on the counters. Charlie being Charlie Kibler. Has almost 1,000 pre-orders, which is great. Bayonet and Musket series banish all their fears. That's a sort of new and related series. I might order that too. I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. 2 new P500s, Cross Bronx Expressway and Inferno. And there's some Frank Chadwick ETO series updates on that if you're interested in that. Here's the box back sneak peek. This is Vietnam 65 to 75. It's super pretty. 3 maps, 6 counter sheets, rulebook, playbook, giant pile of cards for a price that seems unreasonably low. Let me put it this way. I don't think they've charged any of those yet. GMT1 with Jason Carr for the solo stuff. Counter trays back in stock, plus 2 and 3 inch boxes. Here's some video panel with Volko and Jason Carr and Fred Serval and a couple of the people that was part of Gen Con Online. I haven't actually watched this yet. Please watch it for me. Okay, Cross Bronx Expressway is... I'm not going to talk about that. It's not a war game, and I'm not interested in it, so I'm going to exercise my privilege and not talk about it. Inferno is the latest in the Volko Runke Levian campaign game series. This is about the war between the Guelphs and the Ghibellines in northern Italy in the 13th century. Is that right? Yeah, 13th century. This is actually a super interesting topic. Not a lot of games on this topic. Arquebus is like the only one I can think of. There's more, but that's the one I can think of off the top of my head. I would... I'm super interested in this. Haven't played Nevsky yet. Checking on... GMT is getting hit hard, real hard, by the shipping delays. Recent P500 editions, Battle for Normandy is at 428, so it'll hit its number before too long, I think. Triumvir, that looks interesting. That's a Mark Herman and Jeff Engelstein game, I believe. That's probably going to be interesting. Downfall is a Chad Jensen design, the late Chad Jensen, finished by John Butterfield. The Bell of Treason, I think, is one of those 30-minute lunchtime games. The British Way, I think, is some kind of like coin multi-pack type thing. Hard to explain. A lot of people found that Victory Games Vietnam to be difficult, if not unplayable. It's not unplayable. There's people that have played it, but it is hard to get into. It's got a lot of really alien mechanics, especially at the time. I have high hopes for the rewritten rulebook, though. Here's Inferno, Guelphs and Ghibellines. So, no P500 removals. There haven't been any. Weekend at the warehouse. San Diego Historical Con Online, November 12th to the 14th. The War Room at Dice Tower West, March 2 through 6. New games from Vivictus, 3 Days of Glory, and a Typhoon Over the Pacific. I think we talked about that last time. That Typhoon Over the Pacific looks fairly interesting. Punched Magazine. I don't know anything about that. When they had the sale, I almost ordered these Bakelite Twilight Struggle counters, actually. They actually looked neat, but I don't play enough Twilight Struggle, I think, to justify that, even though it was cheap. GMT Discord server, check that out if you want. Not there yet. P500 items that could use more orders. So, if you're in the market for big, giant, but pretty playable Battle for Normandy game, the Battle for Normandy, the Dan Holt game, is pretty good. The new edition is probably going to be a little bit better. So by all means, check that out. Mons 1914 is going to be a pretty big World War I game. I have ordered both of those. The others I have no particular opinion on, but I will mention, as I should, I want to mention it more. Do go and order the second edition of Roads to Leningrad. It is outstanding. You will not regret it. It is highly playable. It is entertaining. It is historically interesting. I have not enough good things to say about it, and it's a really good price. And it has been languishing on the P500 list for entirely too long. Even if it hits its number tomorrow, I'm sure we won't see it till 2023 anyway. Digital stuff, no news really. Charging. Okay, so here's the other interesting thing. So, future charges. Next shipment of 6 games is at sea, but they don't know when it will arrive. They'll make their next charges sometime between October 5th and October 19th, and they'll set the charge day once they know when they're actually arriving. So they haven't charged anything yet, but that's coming maybe as soon as next week. Those games are Absolute War, MBT second printing, Normandy 44 third printing, Panzer third printing, and the Tank Duel expansion for North Africa, and Wing Leader Supremacy second edition. And they will probably ship in mid-October. All-time bestsellers, we don't need to talk about that. All right, so at the printer. Things of interest at the printer. 1848 Australia, which is an 18XX game. We don't care about that. Almoravid, that is volume 2 in the Levian campaign series. I am getting that. Barbarossa Army Group Center, second edition. I have ordered that. That is, I mean, if you're not into the East Front series, that's a choice that you can make, and it's a reasonable choice. But I have ordered it. Battle Line 11th printing. Battle Line's actually a fun little 10-minute card game. If you've never played it, it's worth fooling around with. I have Battle Line already, so I'm good. I also have CNC Ancients. Conquest and Consequence, I might order. Is Triumph and Tragedy? Yeah, Triumph and Tragedy's on there too. Because I like Triumph and Tragedy a lot, and that is the Pacific version of Triumph and Tragedy. Dominant Species, 6th printing. I really don't know much about Dominant Species. Into the Woods, that is the Great Battles of the American Civil War Shiloh game. I don't expect to see this for a little while. Hey, I'd be happy to be wrong. Same with Pacific War. That's the Mark Herman Victory Games Pacific War. My most anticipated game of 2020 has become my most anticipated game of 2021 that probably won't come out till 2022. 3 Panzer expansions, Plains Indian Wars, Red Flag over Paris. That's Fred Serval's game on the Paris Commune. That actually looks pretty interesting too. Salerno 43, along with its accompanying mounted map. They really should just say, Mark, your games are nice enough. We're going to put a mounted map in them. Space Corp second printing, Tank Duel Tank Pack number 1, Last 200 Yards volume 3, Solomon Islands. That might be interesting, actually. I might pick that up. U.S. Civil War, that's a very good game. Triumph and Tragedy, we've talked about. Twilight Struggle Deluxe, we all have already. Vietnam, Wing Leader Supremacy. And then going to the printer, Fall of Saigon, Fire in the Lake. Boy, that hit its number ages ago. Flashpoint South China Sea, this is Harold Buchanan's game. It looks very nice. Great Battles of Julius Caesar Deluxe, I have definitely ordered that. I am super excited about that. Red Storm Baltic Approaches. Red Storm was, of course, that operational air game, hypothetical NATO versus Warsaw Pact in the 80s, or whatever. I was going to sell it. I didn't sell it. Because I didn't sell it, I might end up getting this expansion for it. I don't know yet. And then, in Final Art, Paths of Glory. This list is not very big. Russian Campaign Deluxe 5th. We'll see when that happens. Mounted map boards. We'll see when that happens. Twilight Struggle Red Sea is mini Twilight Struggle, pretty much. in 8 to 10 months. Ancient Civilizations in the Middle East. That's a Mark McLaughlin game. That's probably pretty good. No Retreat Russian Front. No Retreat North Africa Front. Skies Above the Reich second printing. Nearing Art Department readiness. Is a whole big list of things that I'm not going to read off. Space Empire is all good things. I'm looking forward to that. And Under the Southern Cross. That's the next game in the Flying Colors series. I'm ordering that too. Did they thank me this time? Looks like they did not. Okay. It's okay, GMT. I'm not hurt by that or anything. Thank you. Here's the box cover for Vietnam. We looked at this last time. Here's some maps for Great Battles of Julius Caesar. Very excited about this set, by the way. Here's Red Sea. Anything else? This is Banish the Snakes, not Banish All Their Fears. Here's the Plum Island Horror. This is another Harmon Letman game. Red Dust Rebellion, Mr. President, Panzer. Is there anything else? There's a whole bunch of updates on individual games. Read the thing. Don't just take my word for it. But I figure we would go through it since it just was announced in the last couple of days. I have also feel like I've been waiting on that Musket and Pike dual pack for a long time, and I guess they've redone the art, and I guess that's the holdup. So that list starting with Absolute War is the 6 games at sea. John Longshore's looking forward to Victory Pacific. Me too, big time. Mons, I'm also looking forward to. Commands and Colors games. I've got Ancients and Napoleonics. That's all I need. That suffices for me. I'm not interested in medieval. I am interested in medieval, but I have Men of Iron for that. That's much more my speed. And I think the medieval battles, with the possible exception of Agincourt, which isn't covered, I think the medieval battles are a little harder to get people into as like an introductory game because nobody's heard of any of the battles except for Agincourt, or maybe one or two of the big Crusader battles, but those aren't covered either. The battles that are in the box are all like Byzantine battles. So, all right. So, looking back at the chat, and I'm probably going to miss people's comments, and I apologize for that. John Longshore says he's slowly moving from GMT to Compass. GMT is still my biggest publisher as far as what's in the games library by a lot. You can't tell from the shelf behind me because this ain't the whole collection, but GMT is about 40% of my stuff. I don't anticipate that percentage will change very much because while I'm buying other publisher stuff more now, that is because I already have all the GMT stuff that I want, except for that stuff that's not out yet. So I'm still going to continue accumulating GMT product. Ken Kloby's looking forward to Battle for Normandy. So am I. John Longshore asks, how many games is enough or too much? I'll be honest, I have too many games. I have more games than I can deal with. I have more games than I can credibly store at this point. Chuck Turner says he's interested in Red Storm. I think at this point that I'm going to keep it because it's I don't really have anything in that space. It's a Cold War goes hot era game. So I think at this point I'll keep it. And we have fans of that. It's not really a series. It's not really a system. It's a family of operational air games from GMT. We have fans of that family here in town, so I'll probably get a chance to play it. Jim L. asks if I've played Pacific War. No, I have not. I don't think Pacific War is particularly abstract, to be honest. And if you understand Pacific War at that level, then I'm not sure that Empire of the Sun is all that abstract. Empire of the Sun is a bit abstract. Both games are less abstract than they at first appear. If you want... The key to understanding the Victory Games Pacific War is this. There are battle scenarios... I'm going to misname some of these things. There are battle scenarios that are just battles. There's engagement scenarios that are the battle plus the meeting engagement that leads to the battle. There are operational scenarios, which are whole campaigns, which are like the Coral Sea, for example, which could take you a weekend to play through. They're not, some of them are fairly small, but they're not all small, and some of them are quite big. And then there are the strategic scenarios, which are the entire Pacific War. The game, and Mark has talked about this, the game was designed around the operational scenarios. It is there that the game shines. If you want a thing that handles the entire Pacific War, you can do that with Pacific War, but a lot of people have tried that and found it unsatisfying. That it is not my recommendation if that is what you are after. You are better off with Empire of the Sun. If, on the other hand, you are more interested in the operational campaigns, then get Pacific War, and that is the niche that I am looking, that Pacific War I hope that I want it to fill. Because there's really very little like it, except the Avalanche Press Second World War at Sea series. And you know, odds and ends here and there that have been done on specific campaigns like Flat Top, which there's you can expand Flat Top too, but there's not much in that space. Eric Burden asks, oh, this is a good one. What percentage of my games are unpunched on my shelf or still in shrink wrap? I have one game in the shrink wrap. It is a duplicate copy. It is also, yes, it is also my only duplicate war game. It is Operation Mercury from MMP, and that is because it was on sale at 1.4, like $40. So me and a buddy got in on it, and I'm like, yeah, screw it, I'll take an extra copy. That is the only thing in shrink wrap on my shelves. Unpunched, there's a decent percentage unpunched, a lot less than you'd think, than I think you would think. So looking at, you can't really see them that well, but looking at, this is all but one of the great battles of history up on the top shelf here, okay? Of these, Alexander's punched and clipped. When I say punched, I mean punched, clipped, and organized. Alexander, SPQR, Great Battles of Julius Caesar are punched and clipped. Samurai is unpunched. Conquest of Gaul is punched and clipped. War Galley is unpunched. Cataphract, Caesar, and Alexandria are punched and clipped. Alesia is... Where's Chariots of Fire? Am I missing two from that shelf? It looks like I am, because Chariots of Fire is punched and clipped. Devil's Horseman, Ron, and Chandragupta are unpunched. So I've punched a good half of that. Half is probably not such a bad guess. So let's think about Compass. Bastogne punched and clipped. Nations in Arms punched and clipped. All three of the No Peace Without Spain games are punched and clipped. Interceptor Ace is unpunched. Saipan Guam and Tinian punched and clipped. No Motherland Without punched and clipped. Korean War and NATO Indian Ocean punched and clipped. I've done all three of those on this show. Avalon Hill, a lot of these are games I got in the last year, so a lot of these are in fact unpunched. Up here, MMP, DAC 2 is unpunched. Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2 is punched and clipped. Case Blue, honestly, I'm still organizing. Third Winter punched and clipped. There's 5 SPI games up here. Russian Civil War, Freedom in the Galaxy, War of the Ring, and War in Europe are punched and clipped, and War in the Pacific is unpunched. And OSG. We got four Hollandspiel here. They're all punched and organized, but that's a trivial task. All of the OSG titles on this shelf, I have a couple OSG titles that aren't, but these are the Library of Napoleonic Battles games. These are all punched, clipped, and organized. All of them. So that answers your question. Hopefully. I mean, I've said this before. I tell myself that I am not a collector, that I am buying things that I want to play. And, you know, a lot of that's true. And sometimes it's bullshit. So I bought it because it looked neat, and then I, you know, looked at it and didn't like it as much as I thought it was going to, or my tastes shifted away from it. That's a thing that happens sometimes too. I did at one point have an extra copy of Third Reich, but I don't anymore, and I don't know what happened to it. I'm about to have 70 GMT trays, so I'm gonna be in counter trays for some time, and I have managed to liberate several counter trays from the ongoing Case Blue project too. So, all right, we are just about at 10 o'clock. I can go for another couple of minutes here, but otherwise I have to go downstairs and wash dishes. So, if anybody has any last-minute questions, let me know. I think I've said enough about Origins. Do I own Stellar Horizons? Can you see it? You cannot see it. It is on the bottom shelf. Yes, I own Stellar Horizons. I like Stellar Horizons a ton. My side clipping project, TSWW Singapore. That's a lot of counters. So that ain't done either. Yeah, I mean that was one of my motivations for doing the sales, which I still want to get back to. I just haven't had a chance yet. One of my motivations for doing the sales was I wanted to clear a little bit of space, but then you start going through stuff. It's like, I don't really want to get rid of this. I mean, I got rid of a few things, but not that much. Most of what I sold was stuff I was selling for other people, not stuff I was selling for me. So I understand. So please do remember, I haven't done there should be an unboxing video. I thank you everyone who watched my stunt video from Friday, by the way. It did better than you would think, as these things go. I don't plan to do more of those. Ooh. Okay, so let's talk about the NWS situation. I forget his name, Christopher Dean, who runs NWS, has had some huge personal losses in the last couple of months, and is trying to get out of the shipping hole that he is in. I finally heard back from them as well. I had sent another reminder a couple of weeks ago and hadn't heard back, and was beginning to consider sending another email, and I don't really want to do that because he's having a hard time as it is. I certainly don't want to pile on. But I did hear back from him the other day, and he said we'll be getting those soon. So good. I want Chris to be viable, because it's a great place to get games. Yes, I was talking about the ASMR video. The music was not Dan Pengaldi music. It was music from the free. Nothing Dan has provided me with was calm enough. So that was YouTube audio library stuff. So on the subject of Hanut, which we were punching a couple weeks ago, and we've seen the unboxing video of that already. I do want to do a video of that. To be honest about it, the video is waiting on the Vassal module, because I cannot set anything up right now. So even a one mapper, and I want the Vassal module. Once I have the Vassal module, NWS is in Florida. Once I have the Vassal module, I can do it with impunity. So I do want to do some video on that. So, all right. So we're about to wrap up here. So what do we got? I might be streaming tomorrow night. New World will be happening on the digital channel and on Twitch. There's links to both of those in the video description. The Hanut Vassal module is listed as preview on the Decision Games website. It's not there yet. I expect it to be available in the next couple of weeks. Let me put it that way. I hopefully will have an unboxing video on Thursday. I don't have anything actually uploaded yet, so I should really fix that. So if you're inclined to watch me play New World tomorrow, please tune in to the Twitch stream. Would I play on Vassal if it means that? No, I'd still punch the games, to be honest, because my goal is to play it with the physical pieces. And I have people who I can play with the physical pieces. Hell, I'll probably bring Hanut up to Winterfest, assuming we're having. Well, right now we're having a Winterfest. As of right now, who knows what will happen, but that's the plan. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that I cannot swing because of vacation time and all that stuff, which is unfortunate, but it's it is what it is. So I would like to thank everybody for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. Please do thumbs up the video. I haven't checked that. I can't police that and run the show at the same time. I'm already scattered. If you want to help support the channel, please do check out things like the Patreon and the merch store and the Ko-Fi, all of which are also listed in the video description. So again, thanks everybody for watching, and everybody have a great night. We will be on Wednesday on this channel. I don't know what our topic is, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time with Dan. Hopefully, if the Charles S. Roberts Awards people have not poisoned Dan against me too. That's my... Well, we'll see what happens. If Dan is with me, then everything's cool. If not, then I'll be doing it myself, and I still don't have any idea what the topic will be. So once again, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.